Hello and welcome into Double A Baseball. Adam Oppenheim with Alex Hynes here on Wednesday, August 20th. Things are really heating up in the playoff races in both the NL and the AL. We're going to start with what happened yesterday, Alex, and that was the Cubs sweeping a doubleheader against the Brewers. They're still a handful of games out, considering the Brewers were scorching hot for the past 2 months, but it was an impressive effort by the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, there's still 7 games out. It's part of a 5 game series because of a doubleheader they had to make up in a 4 game set already. So it was a big chance for the Cubs to try and get a little bit of ground at the very least. And so they'll play today, they play tomorrow. There's a chance that they could get down to 5 games in the division, which, given how the Brewers are playing, seems both unlikely but also absurd that they're still that comfortably ahead. But I mean, the Brewers, they lost that 14 game win streak in Cincinnati in extras. It took
Wild game.
almost a bit, took really a bit of luck to get them in that game, and then a bit of luck for them to not extend the win streak. But for the Cubs, who have been scuffling oh so mightily, and everybody has felt like the sky is falling despite them being in that first wild card spot. And I mean, realistically, they're still at play for the division. You've got a month and a half to go. It's not like it's the complete end of the world. I'm not saying it's likely or it's going to happen, but I mean, 5 games, if it could be by the end of the week, is not insurmountable. So for all that's been talked about with this Cubs team and how bad they've been playing, which is true, it this just goes to show that again. I mean, anybody can beat anybody, and at this point, you really can't, stick a fork in any team in mid-August unless they're very far out.
And you got to think the best players on the Cubs will turn around. I mean, Kyle Tucker is being benched because of poor performance and just has not hit the ball well in the month of August. And then Pete Armstrong hasn't been great. Of course, he chases a lot, so now pitchers are throwing him less strikes. And Seiya Suzuki hasn't been great, although he's starting to turn the corner. When you have three of your top four hitters struggling, that obviously is going to be a detriment to the team, and therefore you're not going to score a lot of runs. Talk about a guy who stepped up, though. Owen Casey is the Cubs' top prospect who they brought up on the hitting side and has been absolutely terrific. And that's what young players can do to teams. I always find it surprising that you have a bat now, not so much for Owen Casey because he was just starting to get hot this year in AAA, but that you leave players so long in AAA who are red hot. You might as well bring them up, especially if you have a spot for them. Ian Happ's been struggling for the Cubs. I mean, what's the difference in terms of the bat? You have way higher upside with Owen Casey.
Yeah, and it's obviously a very slippery slope with those things. Because again, you can look for every
Right.
single player that has played extremely well, guys that hit the ground running and do amazing. There's a guy like Pete Armstrong when he first made the big leagues, or again another Cubs example, Anthony Rizzo really struggled in I think it was 2014, um, or no 2012, his first year with the Cubs. So it's hard to judge that, but again, you really don't know what you got until you just sort of send them into sink or swim. And so, but again, you can see how quickly players can develop. I mean, Matt Shaw got sent back down early in the year. He's made so many adjustments. I mean, you look at his stance, it's changed almost every single month to where now he's finally finding things. He's got 8 homers since the All-Star
Yeah,
break. He
he's been
was
their best hair since the break.
right. And so, getting Owen Casey, a guy who just brings a little bit of extra length. I mean, you look at the guys that they did have. I mean, they got rid of John Birdie. Unfortunately, Miguel Amaya had an injury, so they couldn't offload one of their main three catchers, being, well, either the backup, Reese McGuire, or would be probably the one who would have gone. But obviously, with Amaya's injury, there's, you know, no other option. So, it required kind of the perfect storm, but it's nice to see Casey getting the call. Finally seen some benefit out of that Yu Darvish trade from what now 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So, I mean, it's good. It's good to see that for Casey. But again, the offense for the Cubs, it's been. I mean, you talk about their two best hitters. The only guys that had hit homers in the last like 2 weeks before yesterday were Michael Bush and Matt Shaw. It was just those two guys, and then Willie Castro hits one yesterday. Oh, and Casey gets his first career homer yesterday. But it's like you have to feel like the Haps, the Suzuki's, PCA, Tucker eventually will get things going. And that's where I think there's so much doom and gloom around the offense being broken when, well, it's hard when you get a collective slump. It's not very common, but it's killer when it happens.
And the truth is, the pitching was due for some regression. I mean, they had a bunch of pitchers just elite early in the year. You mentioned Drew Pomeranz had like a 0 ERA, through 3 months of the season, and he hasn't pitched in the league in like a few years. Andrew Kittredge has been a good trade acquisition. Kind of used him in like a secondary closer role slash setup man. Um, Ryan Brazier was really good early in the year. Caleb Thielbar was unhittable. But you're not going to get a team with 4 or 5 relievers who have like a 1.5 ERA. That's just not realistic.
But
The truth is the Cubs need to score runs in order to win games.
right. But at the same time, talking about the pitching has been really good for the
It
Cubs. I
has.
mean, they've had one of the best pitching staffs in the league since the beginning of July. And they were talking about it on the Cubs broadcast. I think it was Jim DeShace, the color analyst, that brought up the fact that the Brewers and the Cubs, among players that are actively in their bullpen, have the best ERAs. So not counting guys that are either have been DFA'd, released, sent down, whatnot. The guys that are currently in their bullpen available tonight, for example, or combined to have the second best bullpen among active relievers. So again, they've found ways to keep things close, and I think that's been the problem that so many Cubs fans have had is these have been winnable games. This isn't like they've been blown out or anything. It's games where you're giving up 3, 4, 5 runs. The pitching staff has done their job, and you're feeling like, man, the offense really let them down. So they need to finally string things together. The hitting with runners on was atrocious, especially in Toronto, and I mean some extent in that Pirates series as well. So again, they need to see what they can do to get more than just a doubleheader win against the Brewers. Losing this 5 game set is not going to do you any favors.
Yeah, very, very true. One more guy I'll mention before we move on to an AL team is Cade Horan. Has
Oh
been
yeah.
absolutely terrific. I think we talked about this a couple months ago. We're like, doesn't mean he's going to turn to Paul Skeens, but he definitely has the ability to be better than he's pitched. And you look at that scoreless inning streak that he had going into that Milwaukee game. Whew.
And he got unlucky a bit too because it was an inherited runner that scored. He did half the job, yes, but it was a
Yeah.
bullpen arm that actually gave up the run. So man, it was tough seeing it go that way. But I mean, just out of nowhere, really. And again, you never know when you can get a little bit of that length. And the Cubs pitching staff depth was concerning heading into the year. And while you still feel like they probably should have done something at the deadline, I mean, pitching is no longer the concern heading into the end of this month and then the real big push down September.
Well, I'll tell you a team whose fan base was pretty concerned a couple weeks ago, and that was the New York Yankees. And they've turned it around. They take over the first wild card spot in the AL. And yesterday they hit 9 home runs for the second time this season. The Bronx Bombers, first in the league in OPS and in home runs by a wide margin. This Yankees team, I mean, you talk about it. There can be some dangers of just trying to hit the long ball, but when it comes to the playoffs, I don't think there's anything better than having power in your lineup to go deep at any point.
Right. And well, and at the same time too, I mean, I definitely had concerns about the pitching side of things. Obviously, Cole being injured, now Max Fried is still
He's been rough.
being great, but it's regressed a bit since that really hot start. So it's not really like where you would want them to be, but I mean, it's hard to, count out a team that has a top two finisher in MVP, no matter how you cut it, with Aaron Judge. And I mean, Stanton, Bellinger, and Caballero, one of their trade deadline acquisitions, all had 2 homers out of those 9.
Oh,
So,
I was
you
like, what
know,
are you grouping them together with?
yeah, no,
Bellinger, Judge,
those three
Caballero.
guys you think of when you
Yeah.
think of the power on the Yankees right now. But yeah, again, they've they've been streaky. Yeah, they've got a lot of guys that really fit that mold. I mean, Bellinger, Cubs fans will remember, had a lot of ups and downs, especially last year after he had the great first season. I mean, Caballero is a guy that's not necessarily I won't necessarily say he's not a finished product, but he's still, a work in progress. And obviously, I don't think you could find a player that's more polarized in Yankees fans' minds than Anthony Volpe at shortstop. So, for all the moaning about this team, they're playing they've got players. and that's the first step. And so I don't think they're going to have um, a struggle down the stretch, whether they, have some difficulty with what is a very tight wild card race compared to the National League. I don't think that any issues that they have are going to be really of their own making, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, they've struggled versus the AL East this year, but they've been pretty good outside of the division. And the thing is, they're having a lot of good seasons by pretty solid players. Like Trent Grisham is having one of the best years of his career, the Trent Grisham trade, as we all know. As we learned last week, Aaron Judge has obviously been great. Cody Bellinger has been terrific. His two strike approach is just elite, and his swing just fits perfectly in Yankee Stadium. I mean, I feel like everyone says that about a lefty hitter, but Bellinger especially can go to all parts of the field. But if he's ahead in the count, he's launching for right field.
Well, and I think it's funny. You look at there's four players that have 20 plus homers on this Yankees team. Two of them you'd probably be able to expect. Obviously, Aaron Judge. Cody Bellinger has 22 now after the homers
Yeah, Grisham
yesterday.
definitely has 20, I would say.
Trent Grisham is 21,
Yeah.
and the other one is Jazz Chisholm. And Chisholm,
Uh,
I mean, he's put up a 3 WAR year. Again, the defense has been a bit shaky, and he's moved around a bit between third and second. But again, you're seeing a guy that they brought in, a year ago, didn't have really the convincing introduction to Yankees fans that they would have liked. Um, and I just think that again, we can really get into the spoiled nature of fan bases at some point. But I think you kind of have to take a step back, look at the team in front of you, and say you've got the players for it. They need to perform, but this is a Yankees team that shouldn't, the way that a lot of guys have played, have the kind of concerns that I think a lot of people have had.
and yeah, and you have Giancarlo Stanton healthy, which is huge, who was, I mean, your second
Yeah,
best playoff performer last year, is a monster playoff performer year in and year out. He can just rope the ball. I mean, he's an
yeah.
incredible hitter, even if his fielding leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, you know he's not going to be good in the field, and it's not his fault for the most part. I mean, he doesn't get a great read on the ball, but he's not fast. He's not going to be able to change that because they're trying to keep him healthy. Another guy I'll point out, Ben Rice, has been absolutely huge. Baseball Savant absolutely loves Ben Rice. If you look at his page, it's like all red. And compared to Austin Wells, who was destined to have a pretty solid year, who's really struggled. I mean, Ben Rice should be the full-time catcher. There's no doubt in my mind. He's hard to strike out and he hits for power. Has been a little bit unlucky this year, according to a lot of statistics. So you have Stanton, Bellinger, Grisham, Judge. You're stacking up these players, and then you add Rice. It's a pretty solid lineup, and you can see why they're just at the top of pretty much all the power numbers, and then pretty solid bench as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Yankees, and the power is never going to be a problem. You could have said that, any number of years in the last,
Right.
really could go through the entire career of Aaron Judge and say, yeah, they're going to hit a lot of homers, whether they play the way they should, and they have the players to back him up, which they haven't a lot of the time. They're still going to hit for power. And again, the bullpen hasn't been the way they would have liked. Obviously, we detailed a few weeks ago their introduction to their trade deadline arms,
I mean, I'll
but
say we nailed that. Both saying we did not
yeah,
like Duvall, and I at least said I like Bednar, and you I think agreed on that, and he's been solid.
right. And so again, they didn't get the guys they probably should have to lock things down. But when you're paying Devin Williams the way you are
Yeah.
to try and be a closer, it's kind of hard to then, even as the Yankees, justify bringing in a guy that is another, actual electric closer. So, it is a bullpen of misfit toys, I believe I described it originally, between Doval, Bednar, Williams. I mean, Luke Weaver was closing, and he's actually been done well. But again, you're talking about guys that have all closed in the last, several years that are now
Yeah.
cobbled together to make a bullpen that you hope can string together performances in the playoffs, which is still a big question.
And also they really just have one good lefty arm in their bullpen, and that's Tim Hill,
Right.
who goes maximum 1 inning. So I always think that's a problem when you don't have a ton of lefties in your bullpen and you face, a lefty power hitter. Uh, and it's especially dangerous at Yankee Stadium. And I mean, they always are going to have good power numbers because they hit the ball hard, because they do more than any other team. But they also have right field that they have to work with, which someone like Jazz Chisholm, I mean, look at his splits. He has been hitting way better at home, and there's a reason for that. So it's yeah, it's interesting fan base. I'll say that. But they play the Red Sox this weekend, this week into this weekend. 4 game set Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that should be a fun one because the Red Sox are really struggling and now trying to hold on to a wild card spot. At this point, I would be surprised if a team like the Guardians or the Royals, who have been hot, get to that spot. Because something would need to go drastically wrong for either the Mariners, Red Sox, or Yankees, which I just don't think will happen.
Yeah. Oh, and you obviously you talk about the Red Sox series for obvious reasons, that being a big one, and they'll play the Red Sox one more series at Fenway
Yeah.
in the middle of September. But you even look at how they round out the month of August. After the Red Sox, it's Washington and then at the rate against the White Sox. That should be a
Yeah.
comfortable schedule for them. And so that makes that September potentially a bit easier for them if they can work a little bit of a lead atop the wild card. Whether they can really make a pass at Toronto in the division, I don't know, but at least they could work up a bigger lead than 1.5 over the third wild card Mariners right now. So that is the one benefit they will have upcoming, in addition to playing a couple teams in the division that again they have not done well against this year.
And I will say, I mean, you talk about the trade deadline. We talked about a couple weeks ago. I don't think it was last week. And I said the Red Sox were losers just because they were on a wing streak. Doesn't change the fact that they should have added something. The Yankees added something, Seattle added something. And that, in my opinion, is going to keep them over the Red Sox in terms of you added a piece to your roster. I mean, I guess the Red Sox added Dustin May, but I don't really look at that as like a giant piece. Someone like Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor, those are two huge holes you filled. The Yankees at the back end, the bullpen add a lot, and then Ryan McMahon, a good defender at third. So now you have a really solid defender over there.
Yeah, and again, when you consider that again, it's a much tighter wild card than in the National League. Looking at the National League, I mean, the Cubs have they've got a pretty solid lead atop the wild card. Then
Right.
you've got three teams between San Diego, the Mets, and then one game out, you have the Reds. But then it's a 5 game gap to St. Louis. So there's really only one other team in major current contention. Whereas in the AL, the first place team, the Yankees, only have a game and a half lead over the cut line. And then afterwards, you got 2 games to Kansas City and Cleveland's 2.5 out before you then get another 5 game gap. So there's 5 teams in it, and there's no team that has really convinced anybody that they're
No.
going to hold on to it. I mean, the Red Sox and the Mariners are both have lost 7 of their last 10. They haven't really made things very comfortable for themselves heading into the end of this month.
No doubt. I mean, both wildcard races should be super interesting. I think the AL could be an absolute blast down the
Oh
stretch,
yeah.
especially. And hey, I mean, if Toronto starts to cool off, you never know what happens in the AL East. Last subject we're going to talk about is Rob Manfred and his realignment thoughts. He went on Sunday Night Baseball as the low league game between the Mariners and the Mets and suggested that there could be some changes, which is quite interesting in my opinion. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the discussion was all about realignment, and this is something where we can get into our opinions on it in a minute, but just the
Okay.
the whole thing being that they're trying to expand into 32 teams, and this has been something that I think Manfred has really said is wants he something he wants to be part of his legacy as commissioner. And again, I think if I remember correctly, his tenure is up in a couple years, and I think it was going to be the end of his commissionership. So there is kind of an end date on this. And so you can see where Manfred, who again has been known to jump the gun on a lot of things, I think it's safe to say that fans won't like, um, is really pushing things a bit quicker than it seems logical. Um, which again comes as
Oh,
no
you're telling me this isn't
surprise.
logical? Coming next in
Believe it or
2026.
not, I am. But again, how they're going to do it, I don't know. Whether this even happens, I don't know. But the fact that he actually brought it out on a national broadcast makes it pretty obvious that he is really going to push this.
No doubt. I mean, some of the hypotheticals are crazy. I'm looking at a Forbes article right now. East Division, Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Red Sox. Just all those fan bases in one division would be hilarious. And then they separate into like the middle divisions, um, which can be interesting. One of them's Cardinals, Brewers, Blue Jays, Orioles. I mean, the thing is, not everything makes sense. I mean, the Mariners play the Rangers and the Astros, and they're in the same division. It's just,
Right.
I guess you could perfectly locate every team, but I just, I don't really like the idea of, I don't know.
Well,
I don't really know what to say.
I mean, the first problem, I think we've kind of undercut the first problem here, which is that you still have two teams playing in minor league ballparks. One for this season only,
Yeah,
another for at least what is it? Two more seasons? The A's are in
I don't,
Sacramento. I mean,
2027 maybe? I don't know.
yeah. So again, you're considering the fact that the Rays still don't have a full-time home yet.
Yeah,
The
310 to
the
red or whatever.
A's, who knows when the A's are going to actually move into Vegas because that's been just a complete um you know mess of things trying to figure out where they're playing and all the other legal and logistic things that I haven't really been able to completely comprehend. But it's kind of hard to say, hey, we want to have 32 teams when right now you kind of only have 28 when you're talking about ballparks. And we're already dealing with the issues of, the Rockies were awful at the beginning of the year. The White Sox last year were the worst team we've seen ever. And
The
you're talking about
Angels.
thinning out the player pool.
Yeah.
You're going to have two more teams. It's two more 25-man roster, 26-man rosters, and a farm system.
Ban the draft. Wouldn't
Oh
that be
man,
crazy if
what
the
if we had
draft
a
was
50
longer?
round draft pick?
Yeah. That would be surprising. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I just find it crazy that he would just bring that up on. I forgot what question he was asked to get him to that answer. One thing you want to change or something? I'm not sure. I don't exactly remember. But I mean, it's fun playing around with divisions and just throwing teams that barely play ever. Well, now they play a little bit more, but they used to like never play. Not a ton of interleague play. So let's
And
move on. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
just the last thought on all this too, and this is a more minute thing, but the real question of are we actually going to still see the American League, the National League as we know it? Because there's ways. I mean, there have been the Athletic did a good realignment mock, which had one team in either league. You rearrange it a bit, keep it a bit more geographic, but you're keeping a lot of the rivalries. The Yankees and Red Sox are not moving divisions. The Cubs and Cardinals are not moving divisions. The Giants and Dodgers, whatnot.
Yeah,
But the
White Sox.
question of do we actually get rid of essentially the American League and the National League, which have been the format the of subdivisions since the two leagues merged in the beginning of the 20th century. So it feels like there is a way that could be concerning of Rob Manfred essentially taking a hacksaw to sort of the tradition of MLB just to get what he wants as opposed to a nuanced thing, which again, when was the last time MLB did anything nuanced, really? Let's be honest.
Yeah, just small tweaks. That's a good point that you bring up. So let's finish it off with our final segments, AA plus and oh no. Alex, you want to go first?
Oh, let's start with the best, I guess. We might as well. Let's take you out to Anaheim. It's the Angels and the Dodgers. A series that had Shohei Ohtani's homecoming and whatnot. But instead, we're talking about the Angels center fielder, Bryce Teodosio, robbing Andy Pajes of a homer out in right field, leaps against the wall. It's not Mike Trout in center anymore, but they've got a man who can still make the flashy play out in center field. Moving on to number two, we talked about Owen Casey. He got a bit of a welcome to the big leagues moment. A fly ball in his debut in Toronto against Max Scherzer looked like he was going to have a very memorable first hit into the gap, but Davis Schneider, full extension, Superman dive, says, "Welcome to the show, kid. You'll get your first hit later on." So Casey's homecoming in Toronto, his hometown, doesn't quite go the way he would have liked in his first at bat. Then we take you back to the Bay with the San Francisco Giants on a fly ball hit into right center field towards Triple's alley. Jung Hoo Lee camped under it, loses the ball, and somehow comes up with the ball in between his kneecaps. I'm still trying to figure out how he managed to do this. A long run, it pops out of the glove as he tries to swirl around to catch it. And as he falls to the ground, it somehow ends up lodged between his legs. I don't know how that has happened. It may be the best catch you've ever seen just because of the pure absurdity of it all. That is your number one play.
That was a wild one. I can't say I've ever seen that. I mean, I've probably seen it on
You
like
won't again.
a ground ball if it, flex off his glove and somehow is in between his knees. But to make that for an out in the outfield, like 380 feet away from home plate, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So let's go to our oh no top three worst plays of the week. We're going to start off with Cardinals Yankees. Ryan Fernandez trying to pick off Jose Caballero will step off and throw in. No one's covering second. Almost takes off Caballero's head into center field. It goes, and he advances to third. Now moving over to number two. Herrera at the plate. Robert Garcia is the pitcher. Ground ball back to Garcia. Bobbles it. Here comes the Jason Kidd dime, and it goes out of bounds and into the dugout in baseball terms. And advancing to third is Herrera. Boy, he thought he was Steve Nash. That was not a good idea. Behind the back dime, maybe not so much. Now moving over to number one, we got Noelvi Marte, who has a line drive into left field. Brandon Marsh is going to charge. Runner chugging around from third, throw home is offline. That's not a problem. Runner advances to second. Now Marte's going to third. Sanchez over to third, and he overthrows it. Noelvi Marte, little league home run. It's down in the left field corner. He probably could have rounded the bases again. That was a horrible play by the Phillies, and Noelvi Marte has our number one oh no play of the week.
Gotta love an inside the park little league homer. But you mentioned he thought he was Steve Nash for your second. Well, what is the actual NBA comp for an NBA connoisseur like yourself
For that pass,
for that pass?
I mean, probably someone like Shaq, I guess. No, Shaq had a. I don't think Shaq would try a play like that. Maybe. Oh, how about an Illinois comp? Andre Curbelo.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah,
Eighth
I'm
year
glad I
senior
thought of that.
Andre
That's terrific.
Curbelo.
I never thought he would get mentioned on a double A baseball
I
podcast, but
never thought he was going to get mentioned in a conversation at all, let alone actually on the show. But hey, shout out former Illinois, former, oh gosh, everywhere else he played, Andre Curbelo.
he might still be in college. I don't know. I don't think so.
Eighth
But
year
anyway,
senior.
Robert Garcia, your comp. Congratulations, it's Andre Curbelo. So our number one oh no play of the week was that Marte Little League Blast. Well, that's gonna wrap it up here on Double A Baseball. For my partner, Alex Hynes, I'm Adam Oppenheim. We'll see you next time on Double A Baseball.